So one of the latest trends in this hobby is the Cinewhoop. Now there's been a ton of manufacturers who have started to enter the space, but only a few of them have got it right. In this video, I want to introduce you to a new one. That's right, R3D Shifters has come out with a Cinewhoop. But it's not just any Cinewhoop. This is the R3DWhoop4K. This is a closer look at the R3D Shifters R3DWhoop4K. This is a 3D print out of a carbon infused nylon. And right away, when manufacturers are making whoop style quads and putting 4K or 1080 on them, the issue that most of them have is they have jello in the footage, and you'd be looking at it, it's like this. One of the main fixes is these ducts. So they've gone ahead and added the ducted fans, and with that you sacrifice a little bit of movability for stability, because what happens with these is it takes all the air and sends it down in a straight column, as opposed to just kind of grabbing the air that's right near it and sending it down. So flips and rolls are going to be a little bit harder to do. You can still do them, but this is more of a cinematic style, nice flying drone. But knowing R3D Shifters, this thing's going to fly great, so it really doesn't matter. So some of the things that stand out to me on this quad immediately, number one, the motors. If I flip this over, you can see it a little easier. And right there, you can see it's cut for either 4-hole or 3-hole mounting style motors. So if you want to put like your 1105s, 1103s, you can use these 4-hole style. If you want to dip down to like the 803s, 805s, 807s, you can use these 3-hole style. For this build, I'm going to be using the 4-hole style. And it looks as though these are possibly removable if you needed to ever change them. But from flying R3D quads for quite some time, they are durable. You can pretty much smash these things to bits, and they hold they just hold up. It's a super lightweight quad. Let me throw this on the scale for you. So as is, I mean, this is with the battery strap. This is with the strap for the camera board. As it is, 15 grams, 1.5. So very lightweight frame. So the other thing that always stands out about R3D Shifters quads is the ease of teardown. So in order to remove the camera and this canopy, 4 screws here, and then if you flip it over, you've got 2 screws here. The nice thing though is if you just want to access the controls, you can remove these 4 screws and this whole thing tilts up. Now if you want to remove the entire camera, it's these 2 screws and this flips up, or 6 screws, this whole canopy and camera system come right off. Then down here, this is, I believe this is TPU, or this, I think this is Roflex. So this is a very flexible material. It's the same material that the battery strap is manufactured out of. This is all 3D printed. This is for your camera card. So the way they did this is so you both protect the camera card and you can still access the SD card and some of the buttons. So there's that. The other things that they did here is the mounting of the stack. So they made the canopy nice and high. You can fit, it looks like a double stack and a VTX on top. The way they've done it, if I can get in here close, there you go. You can see they did a 20 by 20 mounting. This here is also 20 by 20. And underneath this canopy, underneath all 4 screws, not only do these 4 screws hold down the canopy, but if you look underneath, and I can't really show you, so I'll have to show you better in the actual build. But all 4 of these screws hold the Whoop style flight controller. Right underneath these screws are the rubberized mounting for the Whoop style flight controller. So you can go 20 by 20, or I forget what the millimeters on it, one of these guys here, the Whoop style flight controllers, where you mount it in the corners there. So this guy can actually mount just like that. And I flip these guys like this. So that's how that's gonna set. So on a craft like this, I'm suggesting probably a 3S LiPo. That'll fit right underneath this pretty nice. Maybe a 650 or a 450 milliamp hour battery would be nice. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I'm going to be putting into this build, just so you can get an idea of what will fit. This style flight controller, this is the Beta FPV. This is a F4 2S, and as stated earlier, I suggest probably a 3S on this, just to give you enough to both power the camera and the stronger motors. The difficulty I ran into is these are the motor plugs that I'm running. As you can see, they're almost twice the size. That's one thing to pay attention to, is the size of the plug. These motors are the Brother Hobby. These are 1103 8000 kV, and as you can see, these have the 4-hole mounting design, which will go perfect with this guy here. And you just slide these through and mount them like so. And these wires are plenty long enough. That's another thing you want to make sure of. And these are actually longer than we need. I've built some of these smaller quads where the wire does not even make it to wherever the flight controller is, but you can see that it doesn't matter. The corners of the flight controller are going to go here, so that means the motor controls are going to be either here and here, or here and here. And as you can see, this will clearly make it to even the farthest spot. So looks like to be a great motor. Just know that that's going to be a problem. You're going to have to find a flight controller that takes that, or they do supply you with one to fit onto the board, but even this, I mean, look at the difference. That's huge. It's almost double the size. So there's that. You want 4 of those. The other thing that you're going to want is some props, and these props here are the Gemfan 40 millimeter. When measuring these, you want the 1.5 millimeter for these specific motors, and you also want the T-style, which, if I can get close, there you go. You can see the motor mount. The center hole is for the motor shaft, and then you have a right and left hole, and those coincide with the top of the motor here. You have a hole right there and there, so that's, you can press on and run them like that, or you can run the these, I believe, are an M2. It might even be an M3 screw. In the build video, I'll go into that a little further. I think they're an M3, but you can pop those in there because these motors are going to have a lot of torque, and they might spin underneath these props, so you can cinch them down that way. The only thing I don't like about these Brother Hobby motors, though, is most manufacturers will actually give you 4 of these. So you'll have one here, one here, one there, one there. It's a lot easier to line them up, and they're not very deep threaded, because you obviously don't want to hit the stator. But these guys here, there's quite a bit of space between the stator and the bottom of the threading. so you can run a little bit longer screw, but these are very easy to strip out, and I've had some crashes where it will rip the screw right out. The issue that you run into is because they sell the screws in like 6 mil, 4 mil. Well, you might need a 7 mil. So you end up screwing halfway into a not very deep threaded area, and that will strip it out. So just know that's something. We're gonna need to put a VTX on this. So right here, this is the TBS Unify Pro 32 Nano. And this goes on all of my smaller builds. I actually like these guys. This is a 5 volt, so you're gonna wanna use the 5 volt on the flight controller. So that guy goes on there. You're gonna have your little antenna that goes with it. And finally, you're gonna want a camera for this guy. So this is the Runcam Split Micro 3. And this is a 1080 5 volt to 20 volt camera. It's got a built-in microphone. So they actually built this camera housing around this camera. As you can see, there is plenty of up tilt. So as you can see, you can get about 50 degrees of up tilt out of that. Maybe that's 45, which to me is plenty out of a little guy like this. You don't need to fly it super fast. And that guy just fits right in there. You can access this early. As I had mentioned earlier, you can just pop these 2 screws and these 4 and pull this whole unit out and install the camera that way. And they left just enough room to get the camera card back to the rear here. This is going to sit about like this. So there's plenty of room to do that. And then this guy, I would actually, if possible, tilt this guy like this and run the wire like that. And then this will give you a little bit more room to run the power cables to the flight controller. So that's just a quick overview of some of the components that will fit into this guy. And really, that's all you need, that and a battery. So that's your close-up look at the Red Shifters R3DWhoop4K. Now, again, this is a 1080 camera. So this is a 19mm camera housing. So it looks as though you can get a Tarsier in there, and Tarsier does 4K. So that's why I got the name 4K. But the drone was built around the micro split, and it fits wonderfully. It absolutely fits wonderfully. So I am super excited for this guy because I've been wanting a HD. So I've been wanting an HD pocket-sized drone with good footage for quite some time now. This is, I believe, where the hobby is going. We're gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller. And something like this is good where if you're doing a photo shoot and you want to get up close, like these are the type of drones that we're going to see on the catwalk eventually. It's just where you can get really good HD footage, which is good enough for TV and video. And something like this, you can get up really close to somebody and not have to worry about hurting them. Now, something like this, obviously hair or whatever is going to get caught in the props, but you can get really close up to somebody and not have to worry about chopping them with a 5-inch drone or something like that. So excited. I'm totally excited for this. In typical Red Shifters fashion, they have pretty much thought of everything. So that's a quick look at the Red Shifters R3DWhoop4K. And I know I'm going to be building this with a 1080 camera, but I do a lot of 1080 footage, so the 4K stuff just, I don't know. I got to upgrade my computer before I get into that stuff. It just taxes it. These things, I have a Carbon 2.5, which is about the same size, and I have ran that thing into everything purposely. Full speed, just bounces right off. I've had components fall apart inside of the quad that are not part of the quad. So I've had like antennas fall off. I've had cameras that just decide to break the lens or move out of the way or whatever. And there's only so much that you can do to protect that lens, and they've done everything here. They've got a little chin strap there to protect the bottom of the camera. But things are still gonna happen. I've had everything fall apart on the inside rather than the quad itself. So these are plenty durable. We just need to work on the durability of the parts that we put into it. So I'm not worried about that one bit. I'm gonna go ahead and do a build video for this, get you guys some flight footage, and give you my opinions on how do I think it flies, my opinions on the footage that comes from it. Because again, like I said, there's only 3 manufacturers, maybe 2 manufacturers that have managed to figure out how to build one of these things and give you that buttery smooth footage. A lot of it has jello into it, and I've tested quite a few of them. In typical Red Shifters fashion, just 2 tools, this thing comes apart, and we're good to go. So I really have confidence that this is gonna fly good. I wanna get it built and test it for myself and to show you guys. So that's the journey coming up on this channel. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up button. And if you haven't done it already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button, because you only get to do it once and it's fun. And I'll catch you later. Peace.